Hello everyone, my name is Steve Chu. Welcome to United in Action, a brand new program streaming here from Tzu Chi Center for Compassionate Relief. We're coming to you from the heart of New York City, right next to the United Nations. United in Action aims to shed light on the United Nations' 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We're going to be taking a look at the various actions that we can be taking both at a global level and a personal local level to help move our shared communities towards a more sustainable future. In our premiere episode today, we're going to be discussing the latest climate change report and reflect on the critical role that women and girls play in building resilience and adapting to the impacts of climate change, transforming crises into opportunities. Before we meet our guests, let's learn more about this report that was just released by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Welcome back. From the IPCC AR6 report that we just saw, we can see that the impacts of climate change are creating grave challenges to humanity. Today, we're privileged to have Cristina Tirado, one of the lead authors of the report, joining us to help unpack what's at stake and share some key insights on how we can adapt to ensure a brighter future for all. Cristina serves as the president of the Sustainability, Health, and Education Foundation and is also an adjunct professor at UCLA School of Public Health. She's a wealth of knowledge in the nexus of gender, health, and climate, and is a dear friend of Tzu Chi's. Welcome so much, Cristina. We're delighted to have you. How are you doing?
Very good, and very happy to see you all.
Yeah, so glad to have you on with us today as we really unpack this massive report. You know, with the thousands of pages of science that have come out from this report alone, there's no way we can dive into all of it today, right? But in the brief time that we share together, I'd love to explore with you, from your expertise and perspectives, these two key questions. As we think about what it means to transform systems and begin to work towards creating development, what are some of the key insights that the science from this report is pulling out to share with us on how structures and systems need to transform to ensure this brighter future?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Steve. It's so broad that I will have to reduce and condense a little bit. I will give you an example that is very focused on the need of multisectorial and integrated adaptation for huge issues, like it could be acute food insecurity and acute malnutrition. In that sense, addressing such a complex issue that is being more and more negatively impacted by the loss of resilience due to more recurrent droughts and extreme weather events that are more frequent and more recurrent. Communities, households, individuals are losing resilience, and this is the focus of part of the research that I have been doing in collaboration with the World Food Programme.
Yeah, I think that exploration of what multi-sectoral approaches is key. I'd love to hear more.
Very good. So basically, we have been exploring a combination of different categories of adaptation strategies that could be effective in addressing a problem that is just too complex, okay? So, for example, adaptation actions that include improving access to healthy, affordable, diverse diets from sustainable food systems, ideally local and agroecological food systems. This is one of the actions or interventions that could be facilitated as an adaptation action. And how we do it? I mean, it has to be integrated in a community or local project or program. It could be a school feeding program, a homegrown school feeding program that could be linked to a procurement program that is local, to local producers, right? So that was one of the approaches that has been endorsed or highlighted with high confidence, because we have so many evidences in different contexts and regions. But nothing goes alone by itself, right? In many areas and communities and countries, this has to be go hand by hand with a combination of improving access to health services, to maternal, child, and reproductive health, to nutrition services, since the climate extremes and the shocks, and different shocks, because they are, besides the climate extremes, we may have economic shocks, we may have pandemics, like right now, or we may have plagues, like locust, or we may have conflict shocks, right? So on top, we have seen that it has been very, very effective to have nutrition-sensitive and shock-responsive social protection programs. It takes from 4 to 6 months for one country to prepare for a lean season, the season when you don't have a harvest, when you have anticipated or detect this. Why? Because you have to go to the donors that will provide the food for all these communities. So the anticipation is critical. Nothing comes without some cross-cutting enablers of adaptation, which are totally targeting, empowering women and girls, one of the most important enablers of adaptation, and education, of course. Education is key for all these strategies to be put in place and work. A right-based governance, right-based approaches, and of course, I mean, peace building and social cohesion. All these initiatives that are right now advancing more with early warning of the humanitarian development and peace nexus are critical to anticipate not only the extreme weather events, but also economic shocks and conflict, arriving conflict.
For sure. And Cristina, I'm completely there with you, right? In thinking about how we ensure resilience through anticipation. We have to know what's coming in order to build the proper protection systems to ensure that people are informed ahead of time and that resources are deployed before crises even arrive. Right. And I think like laying out that timeline of 4 to 6 months are needed in order for us to get there is such a ridiculous number, but also it really goes to show that if we don't take early anticipation to play, that these systems that need 4 to 6 months to really rev into gear will create this huge gap. Right. So definitely, as we think about what adaptation strategies are needed to create and tackle these complex challenges, anticipation being one. I love that you raised rediscovering indigenous foods and thinking about healthier diets as such a beautiful strategy on how we can adapt, right? As the climates are changing, as our foods that we may be planting are not necessarily indigenous to the weather systems at play. I love that you're sharing with us that the science backs up things that we know to to be true, right? That indigenous foods make us more resilient. And finally, I think as we come into the tail end of our conversation here, I'd love to continue to explore this question with you about how you raised how empowering women and girls are really cross-cutting enablers for adaptation, right? We're coming up on the Commission on the Status of Women in a little bit, and we're really going to be exploring this question of why empowerment of women, right? And when we think about why, it really leads me to this question of joy and hope, right? If we can empower all women and girls to be able to adapt to their situations, to become resilient, that gives me a lot of hope and joy. But I'd also love to hear from your perspectives, what about this empowerment of women and girls leads to us being able to enable greater adaptation and resilience?
Thank you for the question, Steve. They are some adaptation options and programs that have been building these communities of empowered women that have been enjoying for the first time, perhaps education or training, and micro insurance or conditional transfers that were conditioned to just checking yourself during pregnancy, okay? Come and check yourself. Then, you will learn to do breastfeeding. Then we will be keeping checking your child nutrition and health, vaccinations. They have been supporting food insecure households, making this emphasis in the need for these girls to continue the education through the school feeding program. So it's a treasure. It's absolutely a treasure to ensure that girls and women are educated and they will be taking care of their kids. I have seen the best examples in the dry corridor, where some cooperation agencies are investing on something targeting to decrease child stunting. And suddenly, all these women that were trained and empowered to have a family garden, they got together and they started businesses, but together. And I love that when you are in the agriculture sector, you don't make money, Steve. You make very little money. When you make money is with the transformation. And this is the smart part where women have been putting a foot on transforming whatever they are producing. These communities are small communities of farmers that have got an opportunity and they feel that they can help each other. I have seen how women were helping women deciding, okay, you go to the garden to work, and but we keep, there is one that it's like a starting in kind change of services, right? It's not the ideal. What we want is everything to be, everyone wants to be economically, to have an independence and an economy, and it's difficult, but I have seen these initiatives from them in setting also the revenue from the transformation of food products and giving an income to the people that, or to the women that are staying in the community, which are usually elderly women that are taking care of the children. So very interesting initiatives that you can find there.
And I think also, Cristina, thinking about just like how many of these solutions that you've just raised to us, whether it's women coming together in a community-initiated way to create solutions for problems they all share, sharing the burden of childcare, coming together to do school feeding initiatives, allowing for greater access to things around financing, health, knowledge, education. These are all such great initiatives that as we're addressing gender equity, we're also able to build resilience. We're also able to adapt. And I'm so thankful for you in sharing these solutions, because they really do give me hope, right? In the face of such a large report, which shares a lot of the challenges that we're facing, we're also seeing a lot of these solutions be validated to the science, to say that these things work. They build stability, they build peace. They're allowing access to financing in a way that we've never been able to do, right? And if there's one thing that I've appreciated about this IPCC report, is that it really recognizes the interdependence of not only the climate crisis, but also the biodiversity crisis, our ecosystems, and our human society's impacts on all of these. Right. So in closing, I think I'd love to hear maybe one or two final thoughts on your vision of hope. Where's the joy in the climate movement? Where's the joy in your work? You've just finished this long report. I'm sure you're feeling overjoyed that the science is out there. Where's the hope and joy for you in this moment?
Yeah, thank you for the question, Steve. Yes, the hope is in getting everybody to realize that this is super urgent. I mean, we have been saying about all these impacts for how many years? I don't know. I was still young, you know. There is no time. The adaptation is possible, but it's super urgent, and this is why the whole report is talking about climate resilient development pathways, which are combining adaptation and mitigation with goals of sustainability, but also with an important component of equity, justice, reduction of poverty, and we have been doing very interesting research in all the co-benefits that we can find in doing things better for our health, well-being, and for equity. Like, for example, all the transformative approaches towards healthier and more sustainable plant-based diets that require integrated strategies, policies, and measures, including economic incentives for agroecological production and equitable access and consumption to more fruits, vegetables, and pulses, and inclusion of sustainability criteria in the dietary guidelines, public education, programs for collaboration and policy coherence, but not only in the agriculture sector, also in the energy sector. All the co-benefits to health from lowering air pollution that we can get from using and shifting to renewables. This is critical. To see this data that we could focus another day and to share them is you know, you will say that's not make sense not to follow the right way of shifting immediately to renewables. Same thing with transport, clean transport and active transport. We need to walk more. We need to bike more. It's for our health, and all this is bringing co-benefits to our health and mental health. All the strategies of creating green infrastructure in urban settings, all these green spaces to lower the temperature during the heat waves. This is critical. Also the blue spaces, and working together to make sure that there are no trade-offs, because nothing is super simple, but that's the way to go. Same thing with green buildings. So all these big shifts into decreasing emissions by urgently shifting into green ways and healthier ways to live and lifestyles. This is bringing all these co-benefits to health, to well-being, to equity, and at the same time, we are reducing emissions drastically. So this combination together is what we call sustainable development pathways, and it's up to us to choose them.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Cristina. As no matter who we are, no matter what sector we work in, there are actions we can take to just and equitably transition towards decreasing emission in a way that creates co-benefits to our well-being, addresses climate change, and it's all possible, but it's deeply urgent. We can see that the climate change impacts are already here and affecting us, but there truly is hope. Like Cristina just shared with us, our daily choices and actions will shape the future, so let us be mindful and make the right choices. Let's think about how we can build sustainable environments with our communities to prevent more climate issues from arising. Thank you so much, Cristina, for being here with us. You've been an absolute treat, and we're so grateful that you're able to share your wisdom and expertise with us today, and the boundless amounts of joy and hope that you have for this world. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure.
Climate change impacts us all, but let's narrow in on how women are facing these challenges with strength and persistence, transforming crisis into opportunity and improving living conditions in their communities. The 66th session of the Commission on the Status of Women, or CSW, is taking place right now, from March 14th to 25th, with the theme of climate change, environment, and disaster risk reduction. In alignment with this conference, Tzu Chi will host 2 online workshops on March 23rd and 24th. In Women at the Center of a Sustainable and Resilient Food System, Tzu Chi volunteer Hengsile Gianni will share her thoughts and experiences in Zimbabwe. Food insecurity is grave in this country, and she and her fellow female volunteers encourage women of all ages to join hands to create a sustainable food system that integrates indigenous and modern knowledge systems. They also bring love and respect into farming by ensuring no one will be left behind. Let's now watch and learn more about their work.
In Zimbabwe, men and women don't have equal access to education. Therefore, it's difficult for women to seek career opportunities outside their homes. In addition, although women are often the primary caretakers in their families and play a crucial role in the food system, their economic capacity tends to be undervalued. The population of Zimbabwe has suffered from a water shortage for years. Without clean water, they can't farm and endure multiple cholera outbreaks. Tzu Chi volunteers help the local government drill wells and distribute water purification tablets to alleviate this problem. Female local volunteers carried out much of this work.
Nenyaya kuti tinoziva kuti kana ukamwa mvura inenge yakasviba saizvozvi unokwanisa kuona zvirwere zvakawandisisa kunyanya wana typhoid wana korera ndomo vanenge vachiwanikwa imomo nenyaya yekuti munosanganisika zvipuka zvimwe zvisina kururama.
Once the locals had access to clean water, Tzu Chi encouraged them to farm. The volunteers also helped them discover viable crops that can withstand the impact of climate change on the local ecology. Thanks to the experience and knowledge of 2 generations of women, local farming has gradually moved toward long-term sustainability. Bananas that don't sell can be cooked, while banana peels become organic fertilizer to replace chemical ones.
Ini ndakazvipira pamusoro pokuti ndakaona upenyu hwangu hwakanga huri kungofira kuti dai ndagona kuwana kubatsira chaiko ndaingobatsira kunyangwe ndisati ndasvika paTzu Chi ndakatomboita project.
Sustainable farming has not only helped local farmers and other villagers in the area survive, but has also protected the environment. They have also worked to shift the traditional perception of women among the younger generation.
Pandajoina Tzu Chi upenyu hwangu hwakachinja nekuda kwokuti ndaifunga kuti murume paachadzoka kumba ndaisakwanisa kugamuchira, asi paakazouya ndakakwanisa kugamuchira nekuda kwokuti ndichisina hasha dzakanyanyisa, plus ndakamuwana pachanomutambiro unofaro semunhu anga ane mwana naye.
Everyone, including women of all ages, can become Tzu Chi volunteers. Through volunteering in food distributions and other events, these local women have become even more convinced that they can contribute to society.
The IPCC AR6 climate change report points out that small island developing states and least developed countries will continue to be the hardest hit by climate change. The empowerment of women and girls is critical towards ensuring we build a resilient future. Now, we're privileged to have Saphira Rameshfar joining us. Saphira serves as a representative of the Baha'i International Community to the United Nations. She also serves on the executive committee to the NGO Committee on the Status of Women and is a champion of gender equality. Welcome to the show,
Thank
Saphira.
you.
Thanks so much for being here. We just had this great conversation with Cristina Tirado, who's a lead author of the IPCC report that just launched, where she shared some different strategies that stakeholders and entities can take towards building climate resilience in development. And I'd love to now dive into the work that the Baha'is are doing and how you're adapting to climate impacts and building resilience.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Steve, for having me. And yeah, so the Baha'i community is active in over 180 countries around the world. And really the heart of the contribution of the Baha'i community is capacity building. So for example, being able to read the reality of the locality in which one resides, being able to identify the needs and challenges, or to identify resources and a path forward. It's supporting youth and adults to recognize these principles of justice and equality and moderation and learn how to translate them into their own individual lives and also to the life of society and to address the challenges of society. And so when it comes to effective environmental action, we've seen across these communities where this pattern of community life is very vibrant, that environmental initiatives are more likely to arise, but that they're also more likely to sustain. And it's in these communities where there already is, people coming together to consult about issues of common concern, or they're already building this capacity to serve, that the most robust and constructive efforts towards environmental action are taking place.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful that you speak about this ongoing development and this ongoing process, not as like a stop and like we have the project and then we're done, but it's this ever involved, interwoven into community life process, yes. Right? And I think that really speaks to the beauty of the Baha'i faith as well, right? To think about something not as just an outcome, but this journey that we all collectively go on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so I'd love to now like maybe explore a little bit of the values that inform this mindset, this process of journey, right? Like what lies at the heart in terms of values to the work that you guys are doing? What drives it? What's at this root?
Absolutely. Yeah. So to tie it to climate change, I mean, any effort towards environmental sustainability has to be grounded in this conviction that humanity is organic with the world. We all need this equal opportunity to benefit from our natural environment, and also we have this responsibility to contribute to its well-being. And so I think to this point about values that underpin it, it's a recognition that we are all part of a global homeland, and we're also all part of a global civilization. And so therefore, when we can see this larger picture, it's much clearer the role that each of us as individuals play. And I wanted to tie some of these values also to gender equality and what it means to kind of understand the very particular situation that women and girls right now are facing and the unique injustices that they carry at this moment. And in the face of environmental degradation, for example, it's women and girls who are more likely to be the ones to lose access to land, to shelter, to lose access to financial resources, to recourse. Their vulnerabilities deepen in the face of environmental degradation, which means that often gender-based violence increases. So another value that perhaps underpins this particular work is recognizing that women and girls are not just victims, but they also have such great capacity to contribute towards a world that is moving towards more social justice and living with more justice with our environment. So women and girls, when they're given the opportunity, can really mobilize, can really form part of community solutions. That opportunity, I think, allows us to understand the broader range of human experience when it comes to climate, and allowing that equal opportunity for that.
Beautiful. I know oftentimes we talk about within the gender equality space how if we're not working and actively empowering women and girls, that we're losing out on 50% of the solutions.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And if we're thinking about just the direness of the situation that we're in within the climate space, obviously there's co-benefits, right? We can simultaneously empower women and girls and also create novel and innovative solutions to be able to speak to their worldview in a way that they can generate solutions that only women and girls can, right? And I love that you're bringing up this framing of our interconnectedness, right? It doesn't matter what race we are, it doesn't matter what ideology we carry, at the end of the day, we're human, right? And that sentiment of wanting to come together collectively to contribute to the well-being of all is such a profound value that lies at the heart of so many of your initiatives. And I think it also speaks well to this idea that we must have women and girls at the table, right? Because if we don't, then we're not contributing to the whole of well-being, right? Only to the privileged and the select few. Moving forward as individuals, we've heard messages of hope, we've heard messages of joy, we've heard solutions that people can take on a practical level, on the community level, and on a personal level. I'd love for maybe you to explore more of this with me. What can individuals do to really uplift and take action both on climate and empowering women and girls?
Yeah, such a great question. And I think very much on the individual level, there's a lot that we can do to strive to align our individual private life with these principles of sustainability. So for example, in the things we choose to consume, the waste we choose to generate, what we choose to do, where we choose to go, all of these have impacts on the environment. And in addition to aligning some of our choices with sustainable practice, I think there's also an interesting part that individuals play being a part of a collective. So placing ourselves in community, whether it's in our workplace, in our place of education, in our faith communities, whether it's in our cities, in our neighborhoods. There is a real question here around how our systems and structures can also be aligned towards more sustainable practices. So for example, in a neighborhood, where are we getting our energy from? Where are we getting our water from? Where is our food coming from? Are we composting? How are we disposing of waste? There are all these questions that are systemic in nature. And so I think allowing ourselves to be open to a process of learning, to be open to collaborating with one another, that we're ensuring that we're educating ourselves, but also placing ourselves within community and allowing ourselves the opportunity to contribute collectively to address some of these situations. And so I think no matter where we are in the world and no matter what the expression of climate change looks like for us or what the environmental situation is in the place that we live, there is always something that we can do either in our personal lives or in our collective community to contribute towards more environmental and sustainable practices.
For sure. And just in closing, right, thinking about the sustainability of our interventions and the sustainability of our actions, it also flows back to gender equity.
Yes.
Right? And thinking about how we respect each other, how we treat each other, right? And if anything, the messages that you've been sharing with me today really strike at the heart of how do we ensure that we not only recognize our interdependence with each other, but that we aren't in relationships with each other that are extractive, manipulative, and degradative.
Absolutely.
Right? That we are truly working to uplift, that we're truly working to empower and hold space, right? How you were speaking to being open to this process of learning. How can we learn to build more enabling environments for women and girls? How can we learn to enable this voice that is often left out of conversation to be at the table? And I know that's work that you do at the UN, at the local level, and I'm just so grateful to have you here with us
Thank
today.
you, Steve. That was a great summary. That was a great way to tie it all together.
Oh, it's what we try to do, right? So thanks so much to Cristina and Saphira for joining us and sharing their insights and experiences with us, helping us better understand both the 2022 Climate Change Report and discover what we can do in empowering women in the face of climate change. Over the following 2 days, Tzu Chi will host 2 online workshops, and we cordially invite you to join us. On March 23rd, we present Women of Faith, Leading the Path to Climate Neutrality. And on March 24th, Women at the Center of a Sustainable and Resilient Food System. Please tune in live via YouTube. You can scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen. You can also find out more information at tzuchicenter.org. Thank you so much for watching and see you in April.
Bye.
Bye-bye.